Part 1. The wind screamed through the Montana mountains like an angry beast. Snow fell so thick that Jake Morrison could barely see his own hand in front of his face. He sat in his warm cabin drinking hot coffee and listening to the storm rage outside. It was almost midnight and he should have been in bed. But his dog Duke would not stop pacing back and forth. Duke was a big German shepherd, usually calm and well-behaved. Tonight was different. The dog walked from the living room to the front door, then back again. His ears were up, alert to something Jake could not hear. Every few minutes, Duke would whine and scratch at the door. Jake had lived alone in these mountains for 5 years now. He had left the army and wanted peace and quiet. Out here, 15 miles from the nearest town, he found exactly that. His closest neighbor was 10 miles away. Visitors were rare. The only company he needed was Duke. But Duke was never this upset without a good reason. Jake had learned to trust his dog's instincts. When Duke acted strange, it usually meant something was wrong. Maybe a bear was nearby or a mountain lion. Winter made animals desperate and bold. Finally, Jake stood up and grabbed his heavy jacket. He pulled on his boots and picked up his flashlight. Duke was already at the door, barking now loud and insistent. All right, Jake said. Let's go see what's got you so worked up. The moment he opened the door, the cold hit him like a punch. The wind tried to tear the door from his hand. Snow blew into his face, stinging his eyes. Duke did not hesitate. The dog bolted out into the darkness, barking wildly. Duke! Come back here! Jake shouted, but the wind swallowed his voice. Jake turned on his flashlight and followed his dog into the storm. He could barely see Duke's tracks in the snow. The dog was heading toward the tree line about 50 yards from the cabin. Jake's heart pounded. What if Duke got lost in this weather? What if something happened to him? The flashlight beam caught movement ahead. Duke was circling something on the ground, barking and whining at the same time. As Jake got closer, he saw what it was. His feet stopped moving. His brain tried to make sense of what his eyes were seeing. A person lay in the snow, but not a normal person. The skin had a strange blue tint to it, even in the flashlight's yellow glow. The hair looked almost like it was made of thin ice crystals, shimmering even while wet with snow. The clothes were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They looked like a flight suit, but the material was wrong. It seemed to shift colors slightly as the light hit it. Then Jake saw the face. The eyes were closed now, but he could see they were too large, set slightly different than human eyes should be. The features were delicate, almost fragile looking. This was a girl, he thought. Or at least something that looked like a girl, an alien. There was an alien dying in the snow outside his cabin. Jake did not let himself think too much. Thinking could come later. Right now, someone needed help. He dropped to his knees beside the alien girl and felt for a pulse. Her skin was ice cold. He found a heartbeat, but it was slow and weak. She was freezing to death. Okay, Jake muttered to himself. We can do this. He stripped off his jacket and wrapped it around her thin body. She was light, much lighter than a human woman of the same size should be. Jake lifted her into his arms, surprised by how easy it was to carry her. Duke, home now, Jake commanded. The dog seemed to understand the emergency. Duke ran ahead, breaking a trail through the deep snow. Jake followed, struggling with each step. The wind pushed against him. Snow got into his eyes. His arms began to burn with effort, but he did not stop. He could not stop. It felt like forever, but it was probably only 5 minutes before Jake kicked open his cabin door. He went straight to the fireplace and laid the alien girl down on the thick rug in front of the fire. Duke immediately curled up next to her, sharing his body heat. Jake ran to get every blanket he owned. He piled them on top of the alien girl, then started rubbing her hands and arms, trying to get her blood flowing. He had dealt with hypothermia cases during his time in the army. He knew what to do for humans. He hoped alien bodies worked the same way. Come on, he said quietly. Stay with me. You're safe now. I've got you. The alien girl's eyes opened for just a moment. They were amber-colored, like honey held up to sunlight. She looked at Jake's face and he saw fear there. Confusion, too. She tried to say something, but the sounds were not words. At least not any words Jake knew. They were musical almost, but completely foreign. Then her eyes rolled back in her head and she went limp. Jake's training kicked in hard. He checked her breathing. Still alive. He adjusted the blankets to keep the heat in. He kept Duke close to her for extra warmth. All through the night, Jake stayed awake, watching her. Every hour he checked her pulse. Every hour he added wood to the fire. His mind raced with questions. Where did she come from? How did she get here? Was there a spaceship crashed somewhere in the mountains? Were there others who needed help? Should he call someone? But who would he call? And what would they do to her? Jake had seen enough of government operations during his army years. He knew how they worked. If he called this in, men in suits would show up. They would take her away. They would lock her in some secret facility. They would study her, maybe hurt her. The thought made him angry. No, he had pulled her from that storm. She was under his protection now. He would keep her safe until she could tell him what she needed. As dawn began to break, the storm finally started to calm. The alien girl's breathing had gotten better. Her skin did not look quite so blue anymore. Some color had come back to her face. Jake leaned back against the couch, exhausted but relieved. Duke lifted his head and looked at Jake. The dog's tail wagged once, slowly. Jake reached over and scratched behind Duke's ears. "Good boy," Jake whispered. "We did good, Duke. We saved her." The alien girl slept on, peaceful now, warm and safe. Outside, the sun rose over the snow-covered mountains. Jake had no idea that his life had just changed forever. He had no idea that this moment would echo across the stars. He only knew that someone had needed help and he had given it. Sometimes that was all that mattered. The alien girl slept for a long time. Jake stayed close, dozing in short bursts but never really resting. He had moved her to his guest bedroom once he was sure she was stable. The room stayed warm, and Duke had planted himself at the foot of the bed like a guardian. When she finally woke up, it was morning. Jake was sitting in a chair by the window, watching the sunlight sparkle on the fresh snow. He heard her move and looked over. Her eyes were open, and this time they were clear and focused. She sat up fast, looking around in panic. Then her eyes found Jake. He raised both hands slowly, palms facing her. He hoped she would understand it meant peace. "Easy," he said in a soft voice. "You're safe here. I won't hurt you." The alien girl stared at him. Her strange amber eyes studied his face carefully, like she was trying to read him. She touched the spot where his jacket had been wrapped around her. Then she looked at Duke. Something changed in her expression. Understanding, maybe, gratitude. She spoke then, words in her own language. Jake could not understand any of it, but her tone was different from last night. Warmer. She was asking questions, he thought. Jake pointed to himself. "Jake," he said clearly. Then he pointed to the dog. "Duke," the alien girl's eyes went wide. She pointed at Jake and repeated, "Jake." Her pronunciation was off, but close. Then she pointed at the dog. "Duke," Jake smiled and nodded. "Yes, good." She put her hand on her own chest. For a moment she seemed to think about whether she should tell him. Then she said, "Kira." "Kira," Jake repeated. She nodded and a small smile appeared on her face. Over the next few hours, Jake tried to take care of her. He brought food and water. Kira was careful at first, but eventually she tried the soup he made. She seemed okay with it, but when he offered bread, she made a face and pushed it away. Fair enough, Jake thought. Alien taste buds, they tried to talk. It was slow and frustrating. Jake used his hands a lot, making gestures. He drew simple pictures. Kira did the same. Little by little, they built a basic way to communicate. Jake learned that her ship had broken somehow. She had crashed in the mountains. The crash had damaged her equipment, including some kind of emergency signal device. She showed him a small device from her suit. The screen was cracked and dark. Jake understood that she had been trying to call for help when the cold got her. Duke stayed with Kira almost all the time. She seemed to like having the dog near her. She would pet his fur and talk to him in her language. Duke would wag his tail and rest his head on her lap. It was like they understood each other somehow. On the third day, something amazing happened. Jake was trying to explain something about humans when Kira reached out slowly and touched his forehead. Before Jake could pull away, images flooded into his mind. He saw her world. Cities made of crystal that reached toward purple skies. 3 moons hanging in the night. He felt her emotions. The fear when her ship was falling. The cold darkness when she thought she would die. The overwhelming relief and gratitude when she woke up safe and warm. When Kira took her hand away, Jake gasped. His head was spinning. She looked worried and touched his shoulder to steady him. "You can share thoughts," Jake said, amazed. "You're telepathic or something." Kira tilted her head, not understanding his words. But she saw his amazement. She touched her own temple, then pointed to his, making a connecting motion with her hands. Jake nodded slowly. This changed everything. With this new way to communicate, things got much easier. Kira could now share complex ideas, though it clearly tired her out. Jake learned that she was a scout from something like a federation of different alien worlds. Her people had been watching Earth for a long time. Her mission was supposed to be routine, but something went wrong with her ship's systems. What worried Jake most was what he learned about her situation. Kira's people had strict rules about contact with less developed civilizations like Earth. Her presence here already broke those rules. If her government found out she had revealed herself to a human, there would be serious trouble. Not just for her, but maybe for Jake too. Maybe for all of Earth, so what do we do? Jake asked out loud. Kira's face showed her worry. She shared images of repairing her beacon and calling for her ship. But Jake felt something else in her thoughts. Hesitation. Fear about something she was not telling him. That night, Jake sat by the fire with Duke at his feet and Kira beside him on the couch. She had learned to use human furniture pretty well, but she still seemed fascinated by simple things. The fire, the texture of the blankets, the photographs on the wall. She pointed to a picture of Jake in his army uniform. He was younger there, standing with his unit. Jake took the photo down and showed it to her. Military, he said. I was a soldier. I protected people. Kira studied the picture for a long time. Then she looked at him with new understanding in her eyes. She touched the photo, then put her hand over her heart. Jake understood. She got it. She understood that protecting others was just part of who he was. It was why he had saved her without thinking twice. Jake found himself smiling. She was from another world. She was not even human, but somehow he felt connected to this strange, fragile being who had fallen from the sky into his life. We'll figure this out, Kira, he said softly. I promise. Kira looked at him with those amber eyes. She reached out and squeezed his hand once. She could not speak English yet, but she did not need to. The message was clear. She trusted him. Outside, the wind picked up again. Snow began to fall, lighter this time. Jake watched the flakes drift past the window. Somewhere out there, he knew, someone was probably looking for Kira. Someone who might not have good intentions, but for now in this moment she was safe. And Jake would do everything in his power to keep it that way. Kira leaned against his shoulder, tired from the day's efforts to communicate. Duke rested his head on her lap. The fire crackled softly. For a little while, the three of them sat in peaceful silence, an unlikely family brought together by chance and snow and kindness. Jake knew the peace would not last. Problems were coming. He could feel it in his bones. But tonight he let himself enjoy this quiet moment. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Tonight was for rest and recovery, and the simple comfort of not being alone. Kira's breathing slowed as she drifted off to sleep. Jake carefully shifted so she could rest more comfortably against him. Duke's tail thumped softly against the floor. Outside, the stars began to emerge through the clouds, cold and distant and beautiful. Jake looked at those stars differently now. One of them, somewhere out there, was Kira's home, a place he had never imagined visiting, never thought he would even think about. But now it felt real. It felt possible, and that thought filled him with a strange mixture of fear and wonder. What have we gotten ourselves into, Duke? Jake whispered to the dog. Duke just yawned and closed his eyes, unconcerned with such big questions. For the dog, life was simple. Protect the pack. Stay warm. Be loyal. Maybe dogs had the right idea, Jake thought. Maybe the big questions could wait for another day. Everything changed on the fifth day. Jake was outside chopping firewood when Duke started barking. Not his normal bark. This was aggressive warning bark. The kind that meant danger. Jake looked up and saw Duke facing the southern ridge, hackles raised. Kira appeared at the cabin door. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide with alarm. She did not need to touch his mind. Jake understood immediately. Someone was coming, they moved fast. Jake rushed Kira inside and down to the basement. He had a workshop down there with tools and storage. Stay here, he said firmly. Kira could not understand all his words, but his tone was clear enough. Duke started to follow Jake back upstairs, but Jake pointed at Kira. Stay with her. Guard. The dog seemed to understand. He sat down next to Kira, alert and ready. Jake went back outside, trying to look casual as he returned to his woodpile. Within minutes, he heard engines. Snowmobiles appeared, coming up the trail toward his cabin. Two men in heavy winter gear pulled up and killed their engines. The first man was about 40, with hard eyes and a face that showed no emotion. He pulled out identification. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Agent Patrick Cole with the Department of Homeland Security. This is Agent Vincent Hayes. We need to ask you some questions." Jake leaned on his axe, keeping his face relaxed even though his heart was pounding. "Homeland Security? Way out here? Must be something big." Cole's smile was not friendly. 5 nights ago, we detected an unidentified object entering the atmosphere over this region. It crashed somewhere in these mountains. You see or hear anything unusual? That storm was pretty rough, Jake said carefully. Lots of unusual sounds. Wind does strange things up here. The younger Agent Hayes was already walking around with some kind of handheld device. It beeped occasionally. "Mind if we look around your property?" "Just standard procedure. You got a warrant?" Jake asked. He kept his voice friendly but firm. Cole's expression hardened. "We can get one if we need to, but that would mean bringing in a whole team. More people, more equipment. Make this a big operation. I figured a veteran like yourself would want to cooperate with your country." The threat was clear. Jake thought fast. If he refused, they would come back with more force. Better to seem cooperative now. "Sure, look around," Jake said. "Nothing here but me, my dog, and a lot of firewood." The agent spent almost an hour searching his property. Hayes's device kept beeping, and each time it did, Jake's anxiety went up. Whatever that thing was detecting, it was picking up something that should not be there. When they got close to the cabin entrance, Jake's hand drifted toward the hunting rifle he kept by the door, but Cole stopped at the doorway. "We'll be back, Mr. Morrison," Cole said. His eyes were cold. "If you remember anything, call us immediately." He handed Jake a card. "This is a matter of national security. Hiding foreign assets, even if you don't know you're doing it, can land you in serious trouble." Jake took the card and nodded. "Of course. Anything to help?" After the agents left, Jake waited a full hour before going to the basement. Kira was sitting on the floor with Duke, shaking. Not from cold this time, from fear. "They're looking for you," Jake said. Kira reached out and touched his forehead. The images she shared were dark and frightening. She showed him what would happen if Cole's people found her. Not friendly meetings and peaceful contact. She showed him laboratories, containment cells, weapons being developed. She had picked up these thoughts from Cole's mind when his device had gotten close to her. The man was not really Homeland Security. He was military intelligence. "The badge was fake. They'll come back," Jake said. "Probably with more people. We need a plan." Kira showed him her beacon again. Jake really looked at it this time. The casing was cracked, but maybe he could fix it. He had worked with electronics in the army. This was alien technology, sure, but maybe the basics were similar. "Can you show me how it works?" he asked. For the next several hours, Kira guided Jake through the device's systems using their mental link. It was exhausting for both of them. But slowly, Jake began to understand. The power source was damaged but not dead. The transmitter needed adjustment. With the right tools and parts, he might be able to repair it. The problem was time, and the agents who would certainly return. That night, Jake prepared for trouble. He pulled out gear from his army days. Tactical equipment he had not touched in years. He checked his weapons and planned escape routes from the property. He set up simple early warning systems around the cabin. Kira watched him work, her face full of concern. She touched his shoulder. When he turned, she shared something new. Memories of her people, their philosophy of peace, their commitment to protecting developing worlds rather than interfering with them. "I know," Jake said quietly, "but I'm not letting them take you. Not after everything." Duke whined softly, sensing the tension in the air. Kira knelt down and hugged the dog, pressing her face into his fur. Jake's old radio crackled to life. It was a ham radio setup he kept for emergencies. Through the static came a voice. "Jake, it's Kevin. Military convoy heading up Route 14, multiple vehicles. Looks like they're heading your way." Kevin was a friend who lived 30 miles south. He monitored local traffic and kept Jake informed of anything unusual. "Time to go," Jake said. He grabbed his emergency bag, extra ammunition, and the beacon parts they had been working on. Kira gathered the few pieces of her damaged suit that she had kept. They loaded into Jake's old truck, Duke jumping into the back seat next to Kira. As Jake drove away from his cabin, he looked in the rearview mirror. He had built that home himself. It was his refuge from the world. Now he was leaving it behind, not knowing if it would still be standing when this was over. Kira put her hand on his arm. Through the touch, he felt her gratitude, her sorrow for bringing danger to him, her determination to make things right. Jake squeezed her hand briefly before focusing on the dark road ahead. "Don't worry about it," he said. "This is what I do. I protect people, even if they're from another planet." The truck bounced along the old logging road, headlights cutting through the darkness. Behind them, Jake could see lights appearing on the main highway. The search was expanding. They had maybe an hour before the net closed completely. Jake knew these mountains better than anyone. He had hunted here for years, explored every trail and hidden valley. If anyone could disappear in this wilderness, it was him. But disappearing with an injured alien and a large dog while carrying damaged alien technology made things considerably harder. "Hold on," Jake said as the truck hit a rough patch. "This is going to be a long night." Kira looked out the window at the passing trees, her amber eyes reflecting the dashboard lights. She was far from home, being hunted by a species she had been sent to observe peacefully. But she was not alone. She had Jake. She had Duke. And somehow that made all the difference. The truck climbed higher into the mountains, leaving civilization behind. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Jake drove through the night on old logging roads and forgotten trails. He had hunted these mountains for years and knew paths that would not show up on any map. Behind them, headlights appeared on the main road sometimes, search parties spreading out looking for them. By dawn, they reached an old fire lookout tower deep in the mountains. Jake had found it years ago. It was from the 1960s, abandoned and forgotten. He had quietly fixed it up as a hunting shelter, never telling anyone about it. The tower stood 50 feet high. The stairs going up were partially collapsed, but Jake had secretly repaired them. From the top, you could see for miles, and because of the thick trees, the tower was almost impossible to spot from the air. Getting Kira and Duke up the icy stairs was hard work. But they made it. The small cabin at the top was freezing cold. Jake got the old wood stove working, and within an hour the space was warm enough. Jake spread out maps on the floor and studied them, while Kira examined her beacon parts under a battery-powered lamp. Duke kept watch at the window, occasionally growling at sounds in the distance. "We've got maybe 3 days before they search this far out," Jake said, talking to himself. "Need to get that beacon working before then." Kira made a frustrated sound. She held up a small piece that looked like crystal. It had shattered during the crash. She touched Jake's temple and showed him what she needed. A specific type of material that did not exist in common earth metals. Jake thought hard. Then he had an idea. "Wait here." He went down the tower and came back 20 minutes later with his truck battery and some copper wire from an old generator. "It's not what you need, but maybe we can make it work." For the next 2 days, they worked on rebuilding the beacon. Kira knew the technology. Jake knew practical engineering. Together, they made a strange but effective team. Their mental connection got stronger out of necessity. Jake started picking up bits of her language. She started speaking broken English. "Your world?" she said slowly on the second night, struggling with the words. Very strong, hard, but also. She touched her chest over her heart. "Warm kind," Jake smiled. "We've got our problems. But yeah, there's good here too." Kira moved to the window and looked up at the stars. "My people, they watch. They see Earth grow, change. Some want to help, others." She searched for the word. "Afraid. Humans too aggressive, too dangerous." "Can't really argue with that," Jake admitted. "We're not great at handling things that are different from us." "But you," Kira turned to face him. Her amber eyes were intense. "You not afraid? You help. Why?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "My grandfather used to tell me a story. During a blizzard, a stranger came to his door. Old man, half frozen. Nobody knew who he was. My grandfather took him in, warmed him up, fed him. Next morning, the stranger was gone. But he left money under the pillow. More than my grandfather made in a whole month. Changed their lives." He looked at Kira. "Point is, you help people when they need it. Doesn't matter where they're from. It's just the right thing to do." Kira stepped closer and touched his face gently. Through the contact, she shared something powerful. A vision of what humanity could become. The potential his people had to join other civilizations among the stars. To bring their unique strength and compassion to the galaxy. But she also showed him the fear. That first contact gone wrong could set humanity back centuries, could make Earth look like a threat instead of a potential friend. That's why you're scared, Jake realized. Not just for yourself, for all of us. Yes, Kira whispered. Duke's urgent barking interrupted them. Jake grabbed his binoculars and looked out. His blood ran cold. Helicopters, at least 4 of them, moving in a search pattern. They were being systematic about it, and they were getting closer. Time's up, Jake said. He looked at the partially repaired beacon. Is it ready? Kira shook her head, frustrated. Need more time. Maybe 6 hours. We don't have 6 hours, Jake thought fast. Okay, new plan. He pulled out an old radio transmitter from his supplies. We're going to give them something else to chase. Working quickly, Jake rigged the transmitter to broadcast on multiple frequencies. It would create an electronic signal that would draw attention. He attached it to a timer and a weather balloon from his emergency kit. I'll release this a few miles north. Should buy you the time you need. He started gathering gear, but Kira grabbed his arm. Too dangerous, she said firmly. They catch you. That's why I'm not going to get caught. Jake checked his rifle and smiled. Besides, Duke needs to stay here with you. Can't leave you alone. Duke whined, but stayed when Jake commanded him to. The dog seemed to understand his job was to protect Kira now. Jake looked at Kira, this alien girl who had become his responsibility. His friend. Keep working on that beacon. When it's ready, you call your people and get home. Don't wait for me. Kira's eyes got wet. Tears that looked almost human. Jake, I know, he said softly. Me too. Now get to work. Jake left the tower and disappeared into the forest. Kira turned back to the beacon, her hands shaking. She had 6 hours to do something that should take 12. For Jake, for humanity, for the future she had seen in his brave, stubborn heart. She worked with a focus she had never felt before. Every circuit, every connection had to be perfect. The improvised components Jake had gathered were crude by her standards, but they would have to work. She channeled power carefully, watching the crystal matrix slowly rebuild itself. Duke paced at the window, whining occasionally. He knew Jake was in danger, but he also knew his job was here protecting Kira. The conflict was clear in his behavior. He will be okay, Kira said to the dog in her broken English. Jake is strong, smart, he will come back. She hoped she was right. She had seen into Jake's mind, felt his determination and skill, but she had also felt his fear. Not for himself, but for her. He was risking everything to give her a chance to go home. Hours passed. The beacon slowly came to life, its core pulsing with a faint blue glow. Kira made adjustments, tested connections, rebuilt damaged circuits with the materials Jake had scavenged. It was like trying to build a computer using Stone Age tools, but somehow impossibly, it was working. Outside, she could hear helicopters in the distance, sometimes close, sometimes far. The search was intense. Had they found Jake? Was he safe? She pushed the worry aside and focused on her work. 5 hours and 40 minutes after Jake left, the beacon achieved full power. The signal was weak, not nearly as strong as it should be, but it would reach orbit. It would reach her ship. She could call for help, but Jake was still out there, and calling her ship would bring everyone straight to this location, including Cole and his men. Kira sat with her hand on the beacon's activation switch. One choice would save her. The other might save Jake. She looked at Duke, sitting faithfully at the window, waiting for his master to return. She thought about everything Jake had taught her. About humanity. About kindness. About doing the right thing no matter the cost. Kira made her choice. She activated the beacon, but with a modification. She sent 2 signals. One to her ship, yes, but also a false signal, broadcasting from a location 5 miles east. A decoy that would draw attention away from the tower. Away from Jake. Then she waited, hoping her people would arrive before Cole's forces did. Hoping Jake would make it back. Hoping that the impossible rescue that had started in a snowstorm would somehow end with everyone safe. Duke suddenly barked excitedly. Through the window, Kira saw a figure emerging from the trees. Jake moving fast, looking exhausted but unharmed. Relief flooded through her. They had a chance. Maybe not a good one, but a chance. And sometimes that was enough. Jake moved through the forest like a ghost. All his old training came back to him. He could hear the helicopters getting closer. Their searchlights cut through the morning mist. He released the weather balloon near an old mining site 4 miles from the tower. The transmitter started broadcasting exactly the kind of signal Cole's people would be looking for. Within minutes, the helicopters changed course and headed for the balloon. Jake watched through his rifle scope as armed soldiers rappelled down ropes surrounding the balloon. He had bought Kira time, but now he was trapped between military units spreading across the mountain. Jake used every trick he knew. He moved through thick brush where helicopters could not follow. He crossed rocky areas that left no tracks. He doubled back twice to confuse anyone trying to follow his trail. It took 3 hours, but he made it back to the tower without being spotted. When he climbed back up, Kira rushed to him. Her relief was obvious. Duke jumped up, tail wagging wildly. For a moment, the three of them just stood there together again. "The beacon," Jake said, catching his breath. "Is it ready?" Kira nodded. "Working." I sent signal. "But Jake..." She touched his arm, sharing what she had seen. Ships were coming. Not just hers, but Cole's forces too. They had minutes, not hours. Jake looked out the window. Sure enough, he could see movement through the trees. Figures in tactical gear moving in formation, professional, organized. They had found the tower. "Stay behind me," Jake said. He picked up his rifle, checking the chamber. He did not want to hurt anyone, but he would protect Kira, whatever it took. The tower door burst open. Cole entered first, weapon drawn, 4 soldiers behind him. They stopped when they saw Kira standing calmly, the beacon glowing in her hands. Duke was positioned protectively in front of her. "Don't move," Cole ordered. His hands were shaking slightly. Despite his tough act, he was clearly scared by the reality of an actual alien. Kira set down the beacon carefully and raised her hands. "I mean no harm," she said in broken English. "I am leaving. Please let me leave." Cole's eyes were wide with fear and fascination mixed together. "Do you have any idea what this means? What you represent? You're not going anywhere. This is the discovery of the century, maybe of all time. She's not yours to keep, Cole." Everyone turned. Jake stood with his rifle raised, not pointing at anyone yet, but ready. His voice was steady, calm, the voice of someone who had been in combat before. "Morrison," Cole snarled. "Put the weapon down. You're making this worse for yourself. This is beyond you. Beyond all of us, maybe," Jake said. "But I made a promise. I pulled her out of that storm. I kept her safe. And I'm going to see that she gets home." The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. They had been told they were chasing a crashed foreign aircraft. Nobody had prepared them for an actual alien. Their training had not covered this. Some of them looked more curious than threatening now. Cole's radio squawked. Excited voices reported something in the sky. Something big. Coming in fast. That was when the sky lit up. A ship descended through the clouds. It was bigger than Cole's helicopters, glowing with soft blue light. The design was elegant, almost organic, clearly not made by humans. The craft hovered directly above the tower, blocking out the sun. Cole's radio exploded with panicked voices as military channels erupted. Jake lowered his rifle slightly. This was it. This was Kira's people. A beam of light surrounded the tower, warm and gentle. Suddenly, 5 new figures appeared inside the cramped space. They looked like Kira, but taller, more imposing, wearing formal uniforms that seemed to shimmer with integrated technology. The lead figure was an older male with silver hair and eyes that had seen centuries. He spoke, and a device on his collar translated into English. His voice was deep and carried authority. "I am Commander Valen of the Federation science vessel Meridian. We received Kira's transmission. Lower your weapons immediately." Cole's soldiers looked at their commander. Cole seemed frozen, unable to decide what to do. His worldview had just been shattered. Everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe had changed in an instant. Jake lowered his rifle deliberately and set it on the floor. He looked directly at Valen. "Commander Valen," he said clearly. "I'm Jake Morrison. 5 days ago, I found Kira dying in a snowstorm. I pulled her to safety. Kept her warm. Protected her from people who would have hurt her or used her. I don't want anything except to know she gets home safe." Valen studied Jake for a long moment. His ancient eyes seemed to look right through him, measuring his character, his truth. "You are the human she spoke of in her transmission. The protector." "Just did what anyone decent would do," Jake said. Valen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "History suggests otherwise, Mr. Morrison. Your species has a complicated relationship with those who are different. Yet you showed kindness to a stranger from the stars. You risked your life, your home, your freedom. This is noted. Cole finally found his voice. Now wait just a minute. This is United States territory. Sovereign land. You can't just come here and... This situation now falls under interstellar law. Valen interrupted calmly but firmly. Kira's presence on Earth was accidental, the result of a system malfunction. Her rescue by Mr. Morrison was an act of pure compassion that prevented a potential diplomatic incident. We are retrieving our citizen and departing. You may file a formal complaint through proper diplomatic channels, which will be established within the next 24 hours of your time. Cole's face turned red. Diplomatic channels? Are you saying... First contact protocols have been initiated, Valen confirmed. Your planet's governments are being contacted simultaneously at this moment to prevent any single nation from gaining advantage. Earth is being invited to join the galactic community, provided you prove ready for such responsibility. The words hung in the air. Every person in that tower understood the magnitude of what was happening. This was the moment that would change human history forever. First contact. The end of humanity's isolation in the universe. Kira moved to Jake and took his hand. Thank you, she said softly, her English much better now after days of practice. For everything. For showing me that humanity is ready, that humans can be kind and brave and good. I didn't do anything special, Jake protested, uncomfortable with the attention. You did everything special? Kira said. She touched his temple one last time, sharing a final vision. Earth in the future. Humanity spreading to the stars, ships bearing Earth's flag traveling to distant worlds, and in a plaza on a distant planet a monument with the inscription, Jake Morrison, who showed kindness when it mattered most. That's not going to happen, Jake said, embarrassed. I'm nobody special. History will disagree, Valen said. When formal relations begin, Mr. Morrison, we will request you as part of Earth's first delegation. The Federation values those who act with honor above all else. Before Jake could respond, Valen turned to Cole and his soldiers. We are departing now. Do not attempt to interfere. Your weapons cannot harm our ship, but using them would be considered an act of aggression with severe diplomatic consequences. Choose wisely. The beam of light expanded, encompassing Kira and her people. She had time for one last look at Jake and Duke. Her amber eyes were bright with tears and hope. She smiled, a genuine expression of affection and gratitude. Then they were gone, beamed up to the ship above. The craft lingered for a moment as if in farewell. Then it shot upward, accelerating faster than anything human-made could follow, and vanished into the sky. The tower fell silent except for the wind whistling through the trees. Cole's radio was going crazy with voices demanding updates and explanations. But he could not move. He just stood there staring at the spot where the aliens had been. Jake picked up his rifle slowly. He looked at the shocked soldiers around him. Young men, most of them, probably more amazed than frightened now. So, he said conversationally, breaking the silence. How much paperwork do you think this is going to be? One of the younger soldiers laughed, sounding slightly hysterical. The spell broke. Everyone started moving again, talking, trying to process what had just happened. 3 months later, Jake stood in his rebuilt cabin. Duke was at his side, older now, but still strong. The government had tried to keep him quiet at first, offering money, making vague threats. But the story leaked anyway. Satellite footage from multiple countries, witness reports from Cole's entire team, and the fact that every major government on Earth had simultaneously received the same message from space made denial impossible. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and Jake Morrison, a quiet veteran from Montana who just wanted to be left in peace, had become the most famous human alive. He had given speeches at the United Nations, been interviewed by presidents and prime ministers, talked to school children about kindness to strangers. The UN was forming a special committee for extraterrestrial relations, and true to his word, Commander Valen had requested Jake as a consultant. But tonight, he was home. Just him, Duke, and the mountain silence he had missed so much. His phone buzzed. Another message, probably from one of the dozens of agencies and organizations trying to recruit him. But when he checked it, Jake's breath caught. The message was audio. When he played it, he heard Kira's voice, speaking clear English now. Jake, it's me. I'm home now, safe with my...